Follows. I'm Julie Kenzler, and I am the host of this show. I am really excited to have you with me and to share another episode with someone who is here willing to tell us their story of hardship, but not just staying stuck there, especially today. I can't wait for you to hear from my guest, but it's the hope that follows that. Now, if you want any more information about Hope Follows, you can just go to my website, hopefollows.com. And you can find the shows on our website and also on Spotify and all over the place. We're streaming everywhere. And thank you so much again to all those who help out and put this episode together and put our whole entire broadcast together. I'm very thankful for the HSBN network and all of the hard workers there and their heart to serve and share what God has in each broadcaster, their beautiful messages. Today, we have a special person. I love her name, Lynda Sunshine West. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about her really quick, and then we're going to go right into our fun chat. Yes, I'm saying this, she actually ran away at 5 years old and was gone an entire week from her home. She came home and she was riddled with fears, and in turn became a people pleaser. At age 51, she decided to face one fear every day for an entire year. In doing so, she gained an exorbitant, that's a great word, Lynda, amount of confidence, and now uses what she learned to fulfill her mission of empowering. This is her goal. 5 million women and men to write their stories. Yes, you, everybody watching this, to make a greater impact in the world. Her company is called Action Takers Publishing. And you can also, we'll have information down below on the screen where you can connect with Lynda on LinkedIn. So please reach out to her. She's an award-winning author, executive contributing author, and wow, with a magazine. She is a publisher. She is a speaker there. I don't know what she doesn't do, but we're going to go ahead and have her come on and share with all of us her hard to hope story. Welcome, Lynda.
Awesome. Thanks, Julie, so much for having me. And one thing I didn't mention in there is that I also play bass guitar and sing in a rock band.
What? I think I remember you saying that.
It's not in my bio, though. It's not in my bio.
Maybe it should be. I like your background, by the way.
Thank you. You know, it's funny. I get a lot of compliments on this, and this is just one of those foldy things that you put in the corner when you're not using it. We live in a very, very small space. You know, part of my journey was we sold my childhood home. I'd lived in that home since I was 2 years old, downsized, got rid of 85% of our belongings and moved into a 28-foot fifth wheel trailer. So with that, I had to have a separator between me and my husband so people wouldn't see him working while I was working. And so I just carried it around everywhere. I get so many compliments on it. You get it at Target. Get it at Target for $70.
What? Okay. I think I'm going to have to look into that.
No matter where I go, I can put it in my car, you know, and so I'll always have the same background no matter where I am.
Wow, you could actually rent it out too. People could use it at weddings and showers. Well, let's get into your story because you just have such a powerful message. And I also love what your bio says, that you believe in cooperation and collaboration, and you love connecting with like-minded people, and you are an influencer and making things happen. Why don't you tell us how you went from corporate working and careers and government, you also worked with the government, to being an entrepreneur, and how long have you had your business, your own business?
Yeah, thanks for asking this. Actually, interestingly enough, I counted how many jobs I had because I was going to be speaking at an event about transition. And in 36 years in the corporate world, I had 49 jobs. The last 20 years of that was working as a legal secretary. I worked my way up the ladder to working for a judge in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And that was like that job that, I was so excited that I got it. I made it, I was at the penultimate. And after about 8-9 months, I realized that I was bored again, like 49 jobs, I'm bored again.
Oh.
And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, I just got to stick out this job. I'm so tired of changing jobs. And I ended up hiring a life coach who helped me to learn who I am, what I'm all about, and like really dive in. I was 51 years old.
Mhm.
And that was when I decided to leave that corporate job and jump out and become an entrepreneur and become a millionaire in a year. That did not happen, by the way. But, just the journey of entrepreneurship, it has been up and down, twists, turns,
Mhm.
backwards, sideways, and just all ways that you possibly can think. And it's been an incredible journey of growth. It's been 9 years for me as an
Okay.
entrepreneur. It took me over 6 years to figure out like what I really do, why I'm here, and what kind of, purpose I'm here to serve. And so 9 years total now that I'm so glad I stayed on the path. I never quit, never gave up on myself in this entrepreneurial journey. And here I am today to be able to talk about it.
Who would you say was your biggest supporter, your biggest fan in helping you discover yourself and then start this amazing 9-year journey and counting?
Oh gosh, really a lot of people along the journey, but so one thing what I'm going to say here might like rub some people the wrong way, but this is my belief is my biggest supporter, my biggest fan is me.
Mm,
And it took a lot to get there because I spent decades being my own worst enemy.
mhm.
And I had to learn how to become my own best cheerleader. And I was able to teach myself how to do that through, my mentors and coaches, my life coach. I've had a lot of people on this journey that have helped me. But really the bottom line is that I spent all of my years, 51 plus years, looking outward for approval, looking outward for guidance, when all along it's been inside of me. I just had to learn how to believe in myself and to tap into that. So I've spent the last probably 6 years really using myself as my inner guidance. I reach out to other people for advice,
Mhm.
but I'm the ultimate decision, maker in the decisions that I do make. So I've become my own best cheerleader, which is awesome because I no longer have to look outward for approval. I have the approval within me.
I love that. And you should never apologize for that because how often, like you said, we are our worst enemy. We're always beating ourselves up when we can become the biggest cheerleader. And that's what God wants the Lord to just feed us inside and help us see the value that He has given to us, what He's breathed into us. So we should walk around confident. We should walk around realizing I can make good quality decisions. I'm going to stop beating myself up and the
Yeah.
negative talk, and I'm going to start using positive talk. Well, okay. Now, your goal of helping 5 million people, how many are you at right now?
433.
Wow.
Yeah. Not 1,000, but 433. You know.
You got to have a big goal for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's funny the actually the 5 million goal came about. It was kind of interesting how it came about because somebody said you need to have a goal, like have a SMART goal so you can have something to attain and you have a number to look for. And I said, okay, my favorite number is 5. So I said 50,000. I'm like, that's a lot of people. And then I said, oh, wait a minute. Grant Cardone, he always says you need to 10x things. And so I 10x'd it to 5 million, not realizing that that's 100x. And so I was like, oh, okay, that was not an accident. So 5 million is the number that I've stuck with since that time. And I'm so glad that I didn't retract and say, okay, 500,000, like just stick with the number and it's a legacy number. This is a number that will be continuing even after I'm gone.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Absolutely. Well, now, what do you, um, let's talk about, before we go into your personal story, talk about when you're helping people write their stories. And you're also a life coach too, right?
I
I
don't
mean,
do
not
life
life coach, but
coaching.
business coaching.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
do a little
Um,
business coaching?
do a little business coaching. I ran a women's mastermind for 6 years, and
Mhm.
so I bring all of that knowledge into the book publishing.
Got it.
So as far as the business coaching itself, it's just something I naturally do now, but it's not part of my business. I'm a book publisher. This is what I do. And I'll share
Mhm.
with you that this was one thing that was really interesting about me making a decision to be a book publisher is I had been in business as an entrepreneur for, 6 to 6.5 years, trying to figure out where's my place? Where's my place? It was
Yeah.
only 2 years ago, September of 2021, where I decided like I am a book publisher and I cut everything else out. So I'm mentioning this because oftentimes it's hard for us to sever those things that are dragging us down, but we don't want to let go of them because we enjoy it. But once I decided to like sever everything else I was doing and I focused just on the book publishing and that was it, things started just like aligning. Like it was like everything was out here and then suddenly alignment. And we published 25 number one international best-selling books in 22 months.
Wow.
And I believe it's because of that focus. Like I know what I do. I know my purpose finally. Like everything culminated to this one thing. It's been
Yeah.
incredible.
That's such a testimony itself right there. When we just hone in and we sharpen and we kind of narrow down our little scope and we identify, okay, this is my wheelhouse right here, and this is where
Yeah.
I'm going to stay. But I feel like that's where a lot of people have trouble finding that. But what is it like? I'm sure there's a lot of people also that would like to write a book, and they think, oh, I don't even know where to begin. And so, what is it like helping people like that write that book of their dreams? What is that process like for you personally?
Yeah, starting off with that, I am not a writer and I am not a reader. I've never been interested in either of those things. But when it came time that my mentor, somebody he ended up becoming my mentor, Greg Reed, he invited me to be in a collaboration book that he was putting together called Footsteps of the Fearless. That year, 2015, I was 51, and you guys can do the math. I'm 60, and I was breaking through a fear every single day that year. And he said, you're breaking through a fear every day, you should join us in this book. So he invited me, and I was like, well, I'm not a writer, I don't know how to write. And he goes, don't worry, we'll take care of that. Like we'll have our ghostwriters will take care of all that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Now I
Mhm.
was scared to do it because I didn't really want to have my own words out there on paper, and it felt so official to be in a book. But I went ahead and I went through with that. And then at the end of that year, Greg, he said, you should write a book about your year of, breaking through fears, because who does something like that?
Mhm.
So I ended up putting together my book called The Year of Fears. Now, it took me a year and a half to write this book because I didn't know how to finish. Again, I was not a writer. I knew how to start my story. I didn't know how to finish it. So I met a book coach and she taught me how to finish writing my book. And so I was able to start and finish the book, and I published it all by myself, didn't know what I was doing, but
Mhm.
I did it. And then I said, this is awesome. I was in a book. I wrote a book. What's my next natural state of progression? Because I want to keep growing throughout my life. And I said, I'm going to put together my own collaboration book. I'm going to bring together people and I'm going to do this myself. And I did it. That was the very first like collaborative book that I put together. And so during this process, I'm learning how to write. I'm learning how to write. I'm still learning how to write. So with our company, Action Takers Publishing, my forte isn't in the writing aspect of it. It's more in the like the publishing it, the marketing it, and the monetizing the books. That's where my forte is. So I brought someone on my team. We need help in certain areas. The writing isn't my forte. So I brought someone onto my team who helps helps our authors to get their stories out. With that said, because of my experience of breaking through all those fears, I have this natural ability to help people to break through their fears related to writing their chapter.
Yeah.
Sally helps them finish it, but I help them get started. And so it's like this great marriage, team that we have together that gets those stories out there. But the point here is that a lot of us don't feel like we have a story. I didn't feel like I had a story. But there was somebody in my life, my mentor, who said, "You have a story. People out there need to hear your message." It was his tutelage, it was his coaching, his guidance that helped me over that finish line. And I got to tell you, that was one of the greatest things I ever did, was to raise my hand to say, "Yes, I'm ready to share my story."
Mm.
Because after that, so many different things have unfolded, and it's been an incredible journey. That's the long way to answer your question.
Well, no, you just segued right into it. So let's go ahead and talk about what happened when you were age 5 and then the continued abusive relationships that you had found yourself in. So go ahead and share that, Lynda.
Yeah, yeah. So when I was 5, I ran away and I was gone for an entire week. And first question people ask me is, "Where'd you go?" And I just went to the neighbor's house. So this 5-year-old, I was safe. I was in a safe environment. My mom knew where I was, but I didn't know my mom knew where I was. So what happened to this little 5-year-old is, they didn't come to get me because they don't love me and they don't want me around. That was my belief that was locked on tight. And so when my mom brought me home, I came back home to this very abusive, volatile environment.
Mhm.
And that was how I was living my life, in this fear of, like, what's going to happen? Is he going to hurt me? Is, my dad, he was very volatile.
Yeah.
And, like a lot of us, I married somebody just like my dad. My first marriage was to somebody who was also abusive. He was more verbally abusive than physically abusive, but that verbal abuse just really knocked me down and down and down. And I lived in this world of, disbelief of, I have no value, I have no purpose, there's no reason for me to be here. He used to call me stupid and ignorant every single day, and I believed him. So after 2 short years of being with my ex-husband, we had 2 babies. My daughter was 4 weeks old and my son was 14 months old. And I decided to walk out, and I literally walked out because I didn't have a car. So I had a baby on a hip, I had a little baby carrying case, a diaper bag over one shoulder, and my purse over the other shoulder. And I walked out. It's like, I'm not repeating my mom's life. And that was a big, bold move. And people say, "Wow, that was brave." The reality, though, is that I was against two different fears: the fear of staying and the fear of leaving.
Mm.
Because oftentimes that fear of leaving is why we don't go. But
Mhm.
for me, my fear of staying was a stronger fear than my fear of leaving. So I chose the fear of leaving, which was a great move for me to make, but it was still based on fear.
And actually, I wanted to say something about that because I did read a statistic of how many times a woman will go back. Uh, Gosh, is it like 7 times they'll go back before they actually leave the abusive situation finally? And
Yeah.
so that was huge that you did the first time. You finally did make that decision.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the statistic might be actually maybe a little skewed, because as a woman in that environment and living there, I left mentally many times.
Uh, yeah.
But the actual physical action of leaving, might be the 7 times, right? So really, if we think about this, my mom was with my dad for 55 years of abuse, and she left him many, many times in her head, but she
Mm,
never physically left him. And I looked at that and I was like, I don't, like, I used that as my model of what I didn't want in my life.
yeah.
And I realized that I was going down the exact same path as she was on, and I
Yeah.
didn't want to do that. Yeah.
Now, I don't remember which one came first. Was it you being invited to church? Yeah, I think that's first before you doing the one fear a day.
Yeah, that was
Okay.
way before. I was
You were in
about,
your 20s. You had,
yeah.
okay. Yeah. So
Yes.
talk about what a difference that made in your life when you first started growing in your faith and how you were invited to church.
I just got, like, my whole body right now is just buzzing, remembering that exact moment. My
Oh,
friend Jane, so she was actually a coworker. I used to be a supervisor at a bank, and she was one of my coworkers. And every Friday, she would invite me to church on Sunday. Now, I was not a churchgoer. We didn't do church in my household. We were just agnostic. I didn't even know what religion was growing up. And so she would invite me to church, and I was so uncomfortable. And I always said, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Something changed that one Friday. I said, you know what? I'm going to go to church with you this Sunday. And so I went to church with her, and we sat in the back pew. Like, there was no way I was going to go talk to anybody, but we just sat in the back pew there. And I paid attention, listened, and then left. And then the next Friday, she invited me to church again, and I went. So it was that second session that they called you to the altar. Anybody who wants to be saved, come up to the front, and we'll do this call for saving. I don't remember what they call it, but it's called the call for saving. And I sat back there, and this wash came over me of like a relief that I can't even explain, but it was like all burdens were lifted. Every single burden that I was carrying around was lifted and washed away from my body. I didn't even go up to the front. I just sat there in that pew, and I was like, I accept. Oh my God. I can hardly talk right now. Like, I accept Jesus Christ as my savior. I didn't say it out loud. I just said it in my head. And like, wow, my whole entire life felt like a relief. I no longer had burdens, pains, anxiety in that moment. Now they did come back again after that. But that moment, I just felt this tremendous amount of wash over me.
And it was a moment where you first discovered, I know the best source for anything.
Yeah.
Right there. You knew God was your source for everything. To
And
be
prior
that
to that, I
one.
didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. And then let's touch on that fear, how you overcame a fear. I mean, I'm thinking my fear is snakes. Oh my goodness. How would I even overcome that? Go touching one, like one a day for a week? Anyway, tell us about that real quick.
It was one a day for a year. It's 365 days
I
in a row.
know, but if I'm just facing snakes, I have other fears, but if I just do that one.
Yeah. Well, actually, I did touch a snake recently. And so it's funny you mentioned that one in particular, because I had this fear of touching snakes. And then I started actually kind of looking at that and say, is it a fear or is it a grossness? Like, if it grosses me out, does that mean it's so now I'm like analyzing the fears, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, so that year, what it looked like is every single morning before I got out of bed, is I would just ask myself a simple 3-word question: what scares me? And then I would lay in
Oh.
bed, and I would wait until the first fear popped into my head. And then my commitment, it was a commitment. It was to break through that fear that day, no matter what it was. I had no idea what fears were going to come up, but none of them cost me any money. None of them were touching bugs or snakes or anything like that. My fears were so deep rooted in the fear of judgment.
Oh.
What if I say something stupid and ignorant? Just like my ex-husband told me every day, he would yell at me, "You're stupid, you're ignorant. People are only nice to you because they feel sorry for you." And I believed all that. So that, coupled with all of my dad's abuse leading up to my first 21 years of my life, were just filled with verbal abuse, verbal and mental abuse. And so those fears were so deep rooted in that fear of judgment. And I got to say that breaking through those fears every day for a year, I no longer have the fear of judgment at all. Like, it never even enters anymore.
Take us through one day. What is one example? And it's in the book. What is the book again?
Yeah, the book is called Do It Because You're Scared. And I'll just share like quickly the reason I came up with this, do it because you're scared, is that I realized, after breaking through 365 days in a row fears, is that 99% of the time, the result that you get, you're either proud of yourself, you're glad that you did it, you feel relieved, you met somebody that you wouldn't otherwise have met, a door was open that you didn't even know was closed. And so what I love about this saying is that now for me, it's like, oh, I'm experiencing fear. I'm going to do this because I'm scared. Like, I have to do it now. And because I don't know what results are going to come. The things that I've done since that time have been incredible. So I'll share with you that my favorite fear to bring up is this one. it was very specific. And the reason I remember it exactly because it was so extremely specific. So I'm laying in bed, I wake up and I say, what scares me? To talk to a stranger in a Starbucks. Like that it was so specific. And so I showed up at Starbucks and I saw a stranger. It took about 10 minutes for one person. It had to be one person because it said talk to a stranger in
Right.
a Starbucks. And so this one guy came in, he sat down. I walked over and just said, excuse me, sir, I'm breaking through a fear every day this year. Do you mind if I just have a chat with you? Because my fear is to talk to a stranger in Starbucks. Sat down, talked to him, got up and walked out, and I almost threw up. Like I was so sick to my stomach because I
Wow.
talked to somebody. I didn't say anything
Wow.
stupid. I didn't say anything ignorant. Guess what?
Oh, oh my goodness. What a powerful way to overcome the negative that has just was so ingrained into you, Lynda.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
everybody, go get that book. Do it because you're scared. And I know
Yes.
there's another book that says the title is Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yeah, and this one, the reason I say do it because you're scared, because to me that phrase is very disempowering. Feel the fear and do it anyway. The word in anyway doesn't bring power. But when I say that is fear, I'm going to do it because I'm scared. I have now empowered myself
Mm,
that fear is a good thing. Fear can fuel me forward. And so it's all about empowering ourselves with the words that we use, the language that we use. So go do it because you're scared.
right. And nobody's going to stop me,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
Wow. Well, thank you. Our time is now coming to a close. I'm going to read this big idea really quick and then we're going to close.
Okay.
Okay. These are ideas for people to go out and spread some and get over some of those fears. Spread some love and encouragement. Compliment a store employee with "You're doing a great job." Okay. Can we do that?
Yes, I will do that right today because I'm going to the store.
Okay, good. And thank you again, Lynda, for joining us. Go check her out on her website and her LinkedIn. You can connect with Lynda. If there's a book you've been wanting to write, go talk to her. Thank you, everybody, for coming today and for being part of the Hope Follows journey. And as we share these amazing stories of hard to hope, God bless you all.